So being my first time, what I did was I did basically one pump of the 105 resin into this little cup. Using a stirrer, I then mixed in some of the hardener, which I am in this case using 406. I don't know which one to use, I'm just going to try it and see how it does. Now I've done that and gotten it to the consistency where it's a little bit more of a pasty type of thing, like thick peanut butter, rather than too fluid. Oh, by the way, I also add just a drop of the black colorant, which is plenty enough to turn just one little pump of the epoxy into black. So we'll see how that goes. Now I'm going to put the hardener in, and that's when kind of the clock starts ticking for me to be able to get it applied and spread out and all that kind of fun stuff. My intention is to try to apply it with this brush, which is kind of a, I don't know what kind of brush it is, but it's just a brush. Not very big, but then my gouges aren't very wide, and I can just kind of get it into depths and crevices with this and spread it out so there's no bubbles or anything like that. Obviously I want to put it on so that I have gone over the edge of the gouge, and I can, once it's cured, sand it down. So here are the gouges on the side where I had used epoxy with a 406 filler. Not sure if I used the right filler, but what my concern is that it seems that after overnight, well, this one's pretty dang on hard as a rock. But I noticed that this one down here is ever so still slightly tacky, and I don't know why that would be different. These all seem to be fine, but for whatever reason this one here is just curing slower. I can feel a little bit of tackiness on my finger when I touch them. These two, and they were all from the same batch of epoxy filler, are hard as a rock and not tacky at all. So I don't know. I might try using a hair dryer to cause them to cure up a little bit better and faster. Now I was experimenting just kind of what I could do about small scratches. And so my intention was I just took some of the epoxy after I'd cleaned everything, but I didn't mask this one spot. I just wanted to see if I could do very quick and easy repairs, and then of course I would take a wet sand and sand this down to smooth. But the net of it is that I don't think I like the way that came out either, but it's not a big deal. It's on a part of the hull that you're really not going to see, and I'll make it nice and smooth before I'm all done. So that's the deal there. Okay then, well, I got a little bit anxious and decided to go ahead with the keel since I was out here and have the time today. And what I did was I just decided to do a 1 foot section to see how I do. And then if I screwed it up, I'd have less than, whatever, a 4 or 5 foot section to try to fix. So net of it is that I cut out you can't hardly see it because everything's black now, but I cut out about a 6-inch wide by about a 1 foot long piece of fiberglass, and I wetted it out. First I put a little bit on the hull and let it get a little bit tacky, and then I wetted it out onto a piece of cardboard, and from there I just took it by hand and I put it onto the hull, which is where it's at now. Once I got it up there pretty decently, I used a squeegee, just a piece of plastic, and squeezed all of the bubbles out of it and made sure that it wasn't drippy. Now the thing that's concerned to me is that like these very edges, and I don't know if it can show up on the camera, there's strands of fiberglass that are out of there. Now I don't want to go cutting on them or pulling on them at this point, because I know that if I do, it'll probably pull the whole mat down. So I've decided to kind of leave it alone, and well, we'll just have to see what happens next. Now you can see there is this one piece of fiberglass just hanging down, and I'm just going to leave that there for now, and I'll cut it off here in the next, when it cures or whenever. It doesn't really matter, I don't suppose. Now one of the things I did discover is that when I do put it up there, it seems to work best if I use my glove covered hand to smooth it out and get it contour to the hull the best that I can, because my hand can contour edges and rounds and things like that, whereas the straight edge of the piece of plastic is going to tend to not. It's going to be squared. So I think I did a pretty decent job of getting all of the bubbles out and getting a fairly uniform consistency of the epoxy in the fiberglass mat. Okay, this is the next day after everything is cured overnight. I was already out here just for a few minutes just checking things, and I'm pretty happy with how the keel area has come out. I'll try and zoom in on that a little bit. And as you can see, it's on there pretty smooth. There are no bubbles. I have already gone over a little bit with sandpaper. I was just kind of curious to see how the edges were. And I did notice that I had missed yesterday this long strand of fiberglass right here that I know that I'll have to either scrape it off or cut it off or do something with it, but obviously that wasn't good. Here's another little one here. But anyways, it's on there pretty good, and it's obviously very solid. I mean, this stuff is terrific. Pretty happy with how that's turned out. Now, on the gouges that were on the side, I'm a little bit concerned. Let me show you those. So today, I'm going to continue down the hull. I'm going to wait on those gouges on the side for a while and see if that one cures up better. And maybe after I talk to Captain Riza, maybe he'll give me some advice as to whether I should use the hairdryer or not. Anyways, going to work on the hull. This is kind of the area that I'm going to be shooting at. And what my plan is that I'm going to start from the 6-inch width that I had when I did this first test pattern here, or test patch. But I'm going to taper it down towards the bow of the hull, so that it comes actually to where it's only about maybe about a 2-inch or a 3-inch area here that's going to cover the keel area. That'll reinforce the fiberglass on the keel and also make it a lot smoother. This is really not all that bad, I don't think, because I can't feel, and I couldn't even before I had sanded it, the edge between the black and the fiberglass itself. So I think it's basically just worn down the paint and the top coat more or less, but we're going to build it back up. So I'll get that on there. I'm going to go ahead and cut it, and this time I'm going to show how I'm doing the fiberglass mat, because it is more. I didn't show it on the back patch because I was kind of experimenting, and it's hard to hold the camera and experiment at the same time. But now that I think that I have sense as to what I'm doing, I'm going to try and get it onto the camera. Okay, I've pretty much I've cut my fiberglass cloth to size, and I've tried it on up there. It's hard for me to hold the camera and it at the same time, but I'll show you best I can. Here's the fiberglass cloth piece, and it's basically starts at about 2 inches and it works its way back to 6 inches, and it's about 30 inches long. Now, Captain Riza had suggested that there was a professional that had recommended to him that on a long piece like this, that once I've wetted it down with epoxy, is to roll it onto a roller and then roll it out. I had tried doing that just with it dry, and I'm not real comfortable with it. I think that if I were doing multiple layers of fiberglass cloth, then that would be a great idea, but it's just too simple to just hold it and stick it on up there with my hands. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So let me just give you a picture of how this is going to go, if I can. It's basically going to lay up on the hull from that end over to the... it's not going to work, but anyway, you get the idea. Okay, so here I am laid out with my my fiberglass cloth. I'm going to trim off any rough edges to it as best as I can. I know I'll have more by the time I get it wetted down and up there. But I've already put 3 pumps of epoxy resin into my cup, and from there, of course, the next step is going to put a little bit of color into it, just a drop or two, and then the hardener. Now, once I've done that, then I'll, like I did yesterday on that other pieces, I'll just get it a little bit wet on the hull and let it get just the slightest bit tacky, and it should be able to stay in place by doing that. And then I will wet down all of this fiberglass cloth and get it on up there, which you'll see next. Okay, this did not go nearly as easy as the one I had done yesterday. Obviously, because it's a much longer piece, and I should have really done it in two. Had I done it, if I had to do it over again, that's what I would have done, is started from the back and worked forward. Just even being able to get it in place, because once you get it up there, you really can't pull it around too much, otherwise all the fiberglass strands just start coming apart on you. As a matter of fact, if you look real close towards this end, you'll see where I didn't even match it up to the edge of the other cloth that I had already laid. I'm gonna let that go for now. I might leave it alone, or I might put another piece of cloth in there and just go that route, or maybe even use a little bit of filler. The net of it is that this was much harder. I should have done it in two pieces. Sorry, the sun is coming through that window over there. So that's the deal. It's on there. Now what I did though is I used a foam roller to basically, after I had smoothed it out the best that I could without tearing the fiberglass apart, I used a foam roller to get out all the excess epoxy so that it's not just dripping down off of there, and it gives me a little bit smoother finish to work with later on. So up to this point, that's about all I can do until I figure out about the two gouge, or that one gouge that doesn't seem to be curing up right. It's just one kind of like last view. You can see I've gotten a little bit of overrun on the part that I'm not wanting to fix. So I'm going to use acetone to clean that up a little bit and go from there. Now, just because I forgot to mention it earlier, before I put that cloth on, I had cleaned it again with acetone, just to make sure that any residue from the sanding I had done earlier hadn't gotten in there. So that's the deal. As for that one gouge that didn't seem to want to cure up, it is cured up now nicely, and so I'll smooth that out, sand it down, see if there are any valleys to it, and smooth. And if I have to, I'll mix up some more epoxy with filler. But I need to go ahead and get after it. The other patches turned out actually very, very nice. So you can see that they're perfectly smooth. They're right in line with the original hull material. So that's going to get a little bit more work, but not much. And then I'll put some paint over the top of that. This is just going to be quick spray paint, a little bit of clear coat over the top of it, just to make it look pretty. Not intended to make anything perfect. So.